It is that time of the year, ladies and gentlemen. E3 2018 is almost upon us, so it is time to talk about what we're least and most excited for. What people look forward to most during this seminal event is, of course, the press conferences. After all, it is when these companies take the stage or host their live stream presentations that the world pays attention. So these are pivotal moments for companies to pull all stops and confidently give us a glimpse of the future. While nobody knows for sure how the tides will shift at the event, it is inevitable that everyone will be anticipating some press conferences more than others, myself included. So here's my personal list of the press conferences that I'm least to most excited about. All the way at the bottom of the list is the PC Gaming Show. I mean, there really isn't much to say about this one. There is seldom much to look forward to during this particular press conference, and they're really not much fun to watch either. That's not to say that we won't see one or two things worth tuning in for this year, but few game developers will risk making their biggest announcements during one of the least popular shows of E3. If you're a hardcore PC gamer though, there might be something here for you, with a number of prominent game companies taking the stage this year. Next up, we have Limited Run Games, a company that specializes in taking games that are only released digitally and giving them the opportunity of physical distribution for a limited time. I'll give them credit for the fact that their venture is really interesting, but I'm not sure if it warrants an entire press conference. It probably won't draw too much of a crowd, but if you're a hardcore player of indie games, this might be one worth checking out. Next on the list is Devolver Digital, best known for publishing games like Hotline Miami, Shadow Warrior 2, and Enter the Gungeon. The publisher has definitely got a noteworthy selection of games under its belt, but really that's not even the reason you want to tune in to their press conference. A press conference isn't even the right words to use if last year's Devolver Digital showcases anything to go by. It was more of an Eric Andre show style skit that's in equal measures bizarre, highly inappropriate, and hilarious. Honestly, do yourself a favor and search Devolver Digital E3 2017 press conference on YouTube and watch the full 15 minutes long video. It's the only way you can remotely prepare yourself for whatever the hell they're planning this year. So with those out of the way, let's now move on to the big publishers who'll be presenting: Bethesda, EA, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony. From those, the conference that I'm least excited about is EA. While I am genuinely looking forward to seeing more of Anthem, which will likely take center stage during this year's EA briefing, I fully expect that we won't see and hear the end of EA sports titles that will bore the audience to death. Not to mention how hard it's become to trust EA lately, given all the underhanded schemes they've pulled over the last year alone, and all the boilerplate corporate bullshit they've spouted. Due to their current standing with the gaming industry, anything they say or show will be called into question, and rightfully so. We'll probably see a handful of interesting showcases, but overall, I expect to be rolling my eyes bored out of my mind throughout most of EA's showcase. From there, we have Microsoft, who's really only a step above EA as far as my excitement level goes. There's just not much to look forward to from the publisher, especially now that the only major first-party exclusive that we officially know of, Crackdown 3, which was supposed to launch this year, has now been reportedly delayed to 2019. There aren't any teasers dangling from last year to be further fleshed out. It's currently just a barren desert landscape when it comes to Xbox One exclusives. However, I do think that there might be an opportunity for Microsoft to make a comeback here, if they go all out and show us game after game after game that will flow at a consistent pace throughout the second half of 2018 and all of 2019, they might just have a fighting chance. I don't doubt that they will announce your typical sequels to franchises like Halo, Forza, and Gears of War, but if they intend to appeal to an audience that extends beyond the hardcore Xbox fanbase, they'll have to do more than that. They'll have to show off brand new, compelling IPs or interesting spins or fresh takes on existing ones, or maybe even revive old classic IPs. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but it is make or break for Xbox One. Of all companies, Microsoft has the most to gain or the most to lose based on their E3 2018 performance, and that is both exciting and terrifying. Above Microsoft is Square Enix, who actually has a fair amount to show at this year's event. Kingdom Hearts 3 will no doubt take the spotlight, and we can likely finally expect a release date for the long-awaited game. But beyond that, you've got Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the Switch-exclusive Project Octopath Traveler, the spiritual successor to Front Mission, Left Alive, and more obscure projects like Final Fantasy VII Remake and that Avengers project they announced early last year. I'm also hoping for at least one big surprise announcement, maybe a tease for Final Fantasy XVI or something along those lines. It has been a while since Square Enix has hosted a press conference though, so it's hard to guess what to expect. Just barely edging out Square Enix for me is Ubisoft, whose press conference will seemingly be chock full of games to present. They've already confirmed that they'll be unveiling a brand new Assassin's Creed game called Odyssey that takes place in ancient Greece. The Division 2 will no doubt be featured, and we'll likely see the likes of Skull and Bones, which is basically a game built around Assassin's Creed 4's naval combat, Beyond Good and Evil 2, and probably one or two surprise announcements for brand new projects or IPs, which is something of a tradition for Ubisoft. There's a pretty decent selection of games that many types of gamers can look forward to, and I'm interested to see how far previously revealed projects have come along and what new projects are in the pipeline. This finally brings us to the top 3 press conferences I'm most excited about, and in third place we have Bethesda. The company has hosted 3 press conferences thus far, and admittedly results have been mixed. On the one hand, their E3 2015 presentation, which focused on Fallout 4's reveal, was pretty amazing and a lot of people left that conference thrilled. The following 2 years, on the other hand, it just didn't seem like they had much to show, not enough to justify a press conference at least. But this year, I have a good feeling about Bethesda's showcase, and I think it will harken back to the E3 2015 days. Not only have they already teased games like Rage 2 and announced a brand new Fallout game called Fallout 76, I think this year will be prime time for Bethesda Game Studios to tease a project that's been rumored for a number of years now, Starfield. And while we know next to nothing about the game, it's hard not to gush a bit about the prospect of a sci-fi Bethesda open world game featuring interstellar travel. If they can close their presentation with even just a small glimpse of this game, then they'll have done their jobs. Given the fact that Fallout 76 is raising some concerns with rumors alleging that it's going to be an online survival RPG with a focus on base building, I think it would be smart for Bethesda to end on a note that basically says there is more to come beyond Fallout 76, and a Starfield teaser would do the trick. Coming in second place for my most anticipated E3 2018 press conference is Nintendo. Now, I know whether you see eye to eye with me on this one will depend on your affinity towards Nintendo games, but I for one am a huge fan of them. I also happen to be an avid Super Smash Bros. Player, so when I heard that Nintendo would be mostly dedicating their E3 2018 presence towards exhibiting the new Super Smash Bros. Game for Switch, well, I was ecstatic, to say the least. I'm also a big fan of the Metroid Prime games, and with Metroid Prime 4 having been teased last year, I have high hopes that we'll at least see an in-engine trailer this year. On top of that, there are hopes for a new Animal Crossing game, gameplay footage of titles like Bayonetta 3, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Fire Emblem for Switch, a tease of the core Pokemon game coming to Switch in 2019, and a Mother 3 announcement, among many other things. If you're not a fan of Nintendo games, most of this stuff may not mean as much to you, but as someone who grew up with Nintendo games and loves my Switch, I'm pretty thrilled about the possibilities. Last but not least, for my most anticipated press conference of E3 2018, we have none other than Sony, which probably won't surprise many of you. Sony has already announced that for this year, they intend to change things up a bit by heavily focusing on 4 PlayStation 4 exclusives and give us a deep dive of each. These titles are Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man, and Last of Us Part 2. all of which seem destined to be some of the highest caliber titles of this generation. Also, keep in mind that these are only the announcements and showcases that we know of. Who knows what new games Sony and third-party partners will unveil. There are also a couple teasers Sony left dangling from last year, like that cryptic trailer of a new From Software game that will surely be properly unveiled this year. Most exciting of all for me personally is the prospect of finally seeing gameplay of Death Stranding, one of the most compellingly bizarre-looking games I've ever laid eyes on. It's no secret that I am a pretty big fan of Hideo Kojima games, for all their strengths and flaws, and with Death Stranding being Kojima's first non-Metal Gear game in a long time, I'm very interested to see what he has in store for us. Just in general though, Sony's on a roll and continues to foster a killer lineup of games from reputable developers, so it really didn't take much thought for me to determine that this is the company I'm most excited about this year. Thus concludes my list of least to most anticipated press conferences of E3 2018. Just to summarize, from least to most anticipated, the order goes PC Gaming Show, Limited Run Games, Devolver Digital, EA, Microsoft, Square Enix, Ubisoft, Bethesda, Nintendo, and Sony. Do keep in mind, however, that excitement doesn't always translate to actual results. Conferences I have high hopes for may end up disappointing, and conferences I was expecting to disappoint may end up surprising me. But that's a discussion for next week after E3 2018 has come and gone. In the meantime though, let us know in the comments below what your list of least to most anticipated press conferences at E3 2018 looks like. And with that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.